I think what I would say before I answer it completely, this is a moving feast. You know, different and new providers come into the broadcast market, and the current ones are changing. Let me give you an example. Netflix has just announced they're getting into gaming. So that is a change for them, you know, in it where that wouldn't have been maybe 5 years ago. So there's a lot of change happening. So I would say before anything, it's always a changing environment, and we've got to be very mindful of that. What I do think will happen, I think there'll be a shaking out, and the bigger guys will survive. The Amazons, the Disneys, those bigger ones will most likely survive. I think there'll be maybe some platforms that will survive, but that's all about them, the global audiences that those, for example, a Man United, they've got a global audience, so they can make it work. The smaller ones are going to potentially struggle, especially the smaller sports. But I do think there'll be a hybrid. I think there will be a hybrid of linear and the streaming. And yes, streaming is probably going to be maybe more and more and more as we start to see a lot more cord cutting. But I still think linear TV has got a part to play. So to me, I would always be saying, look at a hybrid, but keep looking at the trends, what's happening, because it does change so often. I think what I do see is that the main broadcasters will start to look at new forms of streaming. So whether that is gaming, eSports, those sorts of type, or potentially maybe other smaller type rights, like let's say UFC, WWE, those are nice rights to have. So a lot of change is still going on, and it's a very, very busy market. And I think time will tell. But for me, I would say right now, a hybrid model is the one that I would probably really be pushing for. I think not only influencers, but micro influencers. So influencers with huge following, but also micro ones who have got much smaller ones, but you still have a lot of influence is extremely important in the marketing mix, extremely important. I think what we're finding is that the younger audience, the Gen Zers, are really following the athlete rather than the league, rather than, to a lesser extent, the club. It's athlete first rather than club. And therefore, they are having a lot of credibility, you know, and a lot of influence over those people that follow them. So if you just look at the likes of the YouTubers, I mean, my son is 10. He knows hardly anybody on BBC, but he knows all of the YouTubers. And if a YouTuber says something, that's what it is. So he's being directly influenced. So for me, influencers are a vital part. It does not necessarily need to be a sports person in a sports environment. So, for example, recently F1 had Lewis Hamilton with a famous pop star, and the two of them were in essence trying to change and to cross over their following so that they both could benefit. He was wanting to get to their following and vice versa. So there's a lot of areas I think influencing will take off even more. But for me, is the person credible is, I think, important. Does the person produce great content? And is it authentic content? And does the person's values lie in with the sports values or the club's values? And then I think there's the simple one of the reach and engagement that they are driving. Do they have high engagement and high reach in the followers that they have? So those are 4 or 5 very, very quick points. But I do think those big ones, the Ronaldos, but also the micro ones should not be forgot about. And what you should do is, once you've identified them, have a very clear, what do I want them to do? Is it just doing a post? I'm not sure about that. It's really embedding them so it's authentic and it's a story that they're telling. So a lot of storytelling would need to come into it, in addition to maybe other events that they become a host at, other different things. So the more interactive it is and the more authentic, the better. The issue is with magic moments. You might have, let's say, and I'm just putting a figure, 1 million fans, but the magic moment might touch a total of 100 fans. So here to here is always, so that's why you need to be really specific on who those 100 are. Let me give you an example. So I'm involved in a motorbike race here in Northern Ireland, and it's on a road. So it's a closed public road and they race against each other. And one of the magic moments that we did is you get onto a helicopter. So you get onto the helicopter has got the camera, and the camera streams live onto a big screen at the paddock. But the magic moment is we had 2 people sit in the helicopter and they went round for 9 laps. Like the guys are coming off buzzing. It was as if it was like best thing since sliced bread, as we would say in Northern Ireland. I'll give you another one. When I was at the Irish FA, Vauxhall was our sponsor. And how many people want to play at your national team ground? Imagine playing physically on the turf of your national team. So if it's Canada, you're playing at the Toronto Stadium or wherever. So what we did, we got 22 players to play a match against each other on our national stadium. But we got them buses in. We got legends from the past to be their manager. We got interviews. Everybody did a one-to-one interview. We even had an awards night all over a full day. So it was as if you were an actual professional player. Magic moment. We had 22 people out on social media. But then we had a media person. They went out. So the coverage and the feel-good factor we got was absolutely amazing. So magic moments to me are fantastic. You just need to be very careful who you're giving them to, and you're making the most of that. So what do I mean by that? You might give somebody a sponsor, and it might be to help the sponsor renew with you. It might be to a potential sponsor to get somebody to, it might be to a super fan, or it might be to an average fan. It's how to use that for the best. So you got to be very clear in all of that.